cowboy day here in New York City. Welcome back to Late Edition. I'm Wolf Blitzer reporting. Republican presidential candidate Ron Paul is trailing in the national and state polls, but that certainly isn't stopping his underdog campaign from raising a hugely impressive amount of money or tempering the enthusiasm of his supporters. I spoke with Congressman Ron Paul just a short while ago. He joined me from the campaign trail in New Hampshire. Congressman Paul, thanks very much for coming in. Welcome back to Late Edition.
Thank you. Nice to be with you again.
Let's talk about the CNN YouTube debate. There was a comment that John McCain made about some of your strategies with a really dire assessment. I want to play this little clip of what he said. Listen to this.
Congressman Paul, I've heard him now in many debates talking about bringing our troops home and about the war in Iraq and how it's failed. And I want to tell you that kind of isolationism, sir, is what caused World War II. We allowed Hitler to come to power with that kind of attitude of isolationism and appeasement.
You were shaking your head as you heard the final words, but the comparison to Hitler and appeasement and isolationism, you had a chance to respond, but I want you to elaborate this morning.
Well, first off, Iraq is not Nazi Germany, and besides, I thought it was Hitler that caused World War II, not the American people who opposed going in. So it didn't make any sense, and then he was awfully confused about isolationism versus non-intervention. There's a big difference. Isolationism isn't what I advocate. I advocate non-intervention, not getting involved in the internal affairs of other nations and not pretending a country like Iraq is equivalent to Nazi Germany. Iraq had no army, no navy, and no weapons of mass destruction, had nothing to do with 9/11, so the comparison makes no sense.
Under what circumstances, if you were president, Congressman Paul, would you intervene outside the borders of the United States in some sort of crisis around the world?
When Congress directed me to in the act of war, if our national security was threatened and we went through the proper procedures, Congress would say our national security is involved, it's threatened, and we have to act, and Congress has that responsibility. The president is the commander-in-chief, and then he acts.
I guess the bigger point that John McCain was making, and he had just spent some time in Iraq during the Thanksgiving break meeting with U.S. forces, there was that the surge, he says, the military surge is working and that it would be a disaster if the U.S. were to pull out right now. I'll play a little clip of what he said after the debate.
Over in Iraq, the men and women who are serving know what's going on politically here, that they pay attention, and I tried to point out to Congressman Paul that they believe that they're winning, and they don't agree with his description of the motives for which we went to war in Iraq.
You want to respond to him, Congressman?
Well, yeah, we do disagree on this. I don't believe we went to the war for the right reason. I mean, there were no weapons of mass destruction, had nothing to do with 9/11. So we were there for the wrong reason, and he doesn't understand the motivation for why they want to come here. It's not because, you know, we're wealthy and prosperous and free. They come here because we're in their country. And even if there is an improvement, which we all hope there is, we plan to keep 14 bases over there, a huge naval base, and we have this huge embassy. We have a permanent plan to stay there and take over these $30 trillion worth of oil in that region, and the people in those countries know that, and that's why they're very angry. And to deny that is folly. It just means that we have expanded the opportunity for the terrorists to come here because there's greater motivation. So I think we're in worse shape than ever before because there are more Al-Qaeda than ever before. There was no Al-Qaeda in Iraq before. Now they're all over the place, and their numbers are growing. So if we want to protect ourselves against terrorism, we have to understand what motivates them. Even Wolfowitz admitted this. He said that the base in Saudi Arabia was an instrumental part of what motivated Osama bin Laden. So if we ignore that, it's at our own folly.
I think a lot of voters out there will agree with you. The question, though, is this: will a lot of Republican voters agree with you? Because when you made that point at the debate the other night about what Wolf Blitzer said about the Al-Qaeda operations and the U.S. bases that existed in Saudi Arabia before the war in Iraq, there were some boos that came out from that audience. So here's the question: are you in step, Congressman, right now with Republican voters whom you need to win in Iowa, New Hampshire, and beyond?
Well, a poll showed that half the Republicans in Iowa are opposed to the war and would like to come home. The real control in New Hampshire, where I am right now, is by the independents, the group of people that won the election for McCain a few years ago. So I would say that since 70% of the American people want out of the war and they're tired of it, Republicans better pick somebody who's opposed to war or have a new foreign policy, or they can't win. And I think the whole sentiment is shifting. The people are sick and tired of the war, and we can't even afford it. We can't even fight the war without borrowing the money from the Chinese. So it doesn't add up. It really doesn't matter whether I'm right or wrong. The war is going to end because we're going to have such a political and financial havoc here with the devaluation of our dollar, because we just can't keep affording. This is usually how empires end, by spending too much money, maintaining their empires. We're in 130 countries. We have 700 bases around the world, and it's going to come to an end. I want it to come to an end more gracefully and peacefully, follow the Constitution, and follow more sensible foreign policy.